Welcome to where you learn English through real stories of power, ambition, and history. Woo English. Today's story is about one man. A man who rose from poverty to become one of the most powerful leaders in the world. A man who plays politics like chess, who waits, watches, and strikes at the perfect moment. His name is Vladimir Putin. In this audiobook, you will discover how Putin built his power, how he used energy as a weapon, and how a secret deal with the United States could change the world forever. Listen carefully. Learn new words. Feel the drama of real events, and improve your English at the same time. Are you ready to enter the mind of a leader who never blinks? Then, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Cold Leader in the Kremlin, Moscow. Snow falls slowly. The Kremlin walls glow in the night. Inside, a man sits at a long wooden table. His eyes are calm. His face shows no fear. This man is Vladimir Putin. But who is he? Where did he come from? And why does he hold so much power today? Putin was born in 1952 in Leningrad. Life was hard. His family lived in a small room in an old building. There was little food. The city still felt the pain of World War II. As a boy, Putin liked to fight. He was small, but fast and brave. He trained in judo. He learned that discipline and control were stronger than anger. When Putin grew up, he studied law. But his dream was bigger. He wanted to serve his country in a powerful way. So he joined the KGB, the Soviet secret police. The KGB taught him patience. It taught him to listen more than speak. It taught him that power is often silent. In East Germany, he watched the world of spies and secrets. He saw how countries play games with fear and trust. Then, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Chaos spread. Russia became poor and weak. The people felt lost. The West laughed at Russia's pain. Putin was not laughing. He waited. He learned. He built quiet connections. In 1999, Boris Yeltsin, the sick and tired president of Russia, surprised the world. He chose Putin as his successor. Why? Because Putin seemed loyal, quiet, and strong. On the last day of 1999, fireworks filled the sky. Russians were celebrating the new year. At midnight, Yeltsin appeared on TV. His face was pale. His voice was weak. "I am leaving," he said. "Russia needs new energy." And just like that, Vladimir Putin became the new leader of Russia. At first, many people in the West ignored him. He seemed boring, even shy. But they were wrong. Putin moved fast. He crushed rebels in Chechnya. He took control of TV channels. He silenced rich businessmen who challenged him. Step by step, he rebuilt the Russian state. He used oil and gas money to make Russia stronger. He made the army proud again. Ordinary Russians felt hope for the first time in years. But behind his cold eyes, Putin had a bigger plan. He believed the West had humiliated Russia. He wanted respect. He wanted power. He wanted Russia to rise again. And so, the world began to notice. This man was not a puppet. He was not weak. He was patient and dangerous. Today, when he sits in the Kremlin, every decision he makes can change the world. But how far will he go? And how will other leaders respond to him? The story of Vladimir Putin is only beginning. What will he do next? And who will dare to stop him? Chapter 2. From Chaos to Control. The year is 2000. Russia is broken. People are poor. Old factories are empty. Soldiers have no money, no food. The Soviet Union is gone, but no one knows what will replace it. Oligarchs, rich businessmen, take everything. They buy oil, gas, and steel for almost nothing. They grow richer. The people grow angrier. Putin watches in silence. He speaks little. But inside, his plan is clear. He will rebuild Russia. He will bring back order. His order. Russia needs a strong hand, he says on TV. Many Russians agree. They are tired of chaos. They want stability. Putin moves fast. First, he attacks the oligarchs. One by one, the richest men in Russia lose power. Some are arrested. Some escape abroad. Those who stay must obey the Kremlin. Then, Putin controls the media. TV channels become state property. Reporters who criticize him disappear. Fear grows. Silence returns. Next, Putin uses oil and gas. The price of oil rises in the 2000s. Money flows into Russia. New skyscrapers rise in Moscow. The army buys new weapons. Salaries increase. Russians feel proud again. Putin gave us back our dignity, many say. For the first time in years, life feels safe. But Putin's power is not only money. He builds a system of loyalty. Friends from the KGB take important jobs. Generals, bankers, and governors all depend on him. No one can rise without his approval. Slowly, Putin becomes more than a president. He becomes a czar, a ruler who decides everything. In 2004, terrorist attacks shock Russia. Putin responds with force. He removes elections for governors. Russia cannot be weak, he says. The people accept it. They want safety more than freedom. Outside Russia, the West is busy. America fights wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Europe enjoys cheap Russian gas. Few leaders worry about Putin, but Putin never forgets. He believes the West laughed at Russia in the 1990s. He waits for his chance to change the balance of power. By 2008, Russia feels strong again. Putin steps down as president for one term, but stays as prime minister. His friend Dmitry Medvedev becomes president, but only as a figurehead. Everyone knows Putin is still in charge. The man who once sat quietly in the shadows now controls the largest country in the world. He has money. He has the army. He has the loyalty of millions. But power is never enough. Putin wants more. How far will he go? And what happens when the West finally notices his ambition? The next chapter of his story is about to begin. Chapter 3. The Master of Energy. It is winter in Europe. The wind is cold. Families turn on their heaters. But behind the warmth, there is a secret. Much of this heat comes from Russian gas. Pipes run for thousands of kilometers from Siberia to Germany, Italy, and France. Every day, billions of dollars flow back to Moscow. Putin knows this power. Oil and gas are not just business. They are weapons. Who controls energy, he thinks, controls nations. In the 2000s, Russia becomes rich. The price of oil rises. Europe buys more gas. New pipelines, Nord Stream, Yamal, connect Russia to Europe like veins. German factories, French homes, Italian power plants, all depend on Russian energy. Putin smiles. Every winter makes Europe weaker. But energy is not only about money. It is about control. When Ukraine chooses a pro-Western leader, Russia cuts off the gas for days. Europe freezes. Everyone understands the message. Russia can turn off the heat whenever it wants. Oil is another weapon. Russia is one of the biggest oil producers in the world. Every time a barrel is sold, the Kremlin gains power. Putin uses this money to rebuild the army, to modernize weapons, to make Russia feared again. By 2010, Moscow is no longer weak. Luxury cars fill the streets. The Kremlin holds giant parades. Russians feel proud. And Europe? It is addicted to cheap Russian gas. Some Western leaders warn of danger, but others prefer silence. Energy is too profitable. No one wants to fight the hand that warms them, Putin thinks. He plays a long game. He signs deals with Germany. He invests in Arctic projects to control future shipping routes. He sells gas to China, Turkey, and even former enemies. Every pipeline is a chain. Every contract is a promise or a trap. Putin understands something simple. Wars are expensive, but gas and oil can win battles without a single bullet. Europe becomes comfortable. America is distracted in the Middle East, and Russia grows stronger, quietly. But one day, this quiet power will explode into a storm. What will happen when Putin finally uses all his energy weapons at once? The answer is coming soon. Chapter 4. The Shadow of Ukraine. The year is 2013. In Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, people fill the streets. They wave blue and yellow flags. They want change. They want freedom. They want to be closer to Europe. But in Moscow, Putin watches carefully. To him, Ukraine is not just another country. It is Russia's neighbor, its little brother. Losing Ukraine to the West feels like losing part of Russia itself. For many years, Ukraine has been divided. Some people look west. They dream of joining the European Union. Others look east. They speak Russian, trade with Russia, and feel close to Moscow. Putin knows this division. He uses it. In February 2014, everything changes. Ukraine's pro-Russian president runs away after months of protests. The West celebrates, but Putin is furious. He believes the United States and Europe helped remove Russia's ally. This is a coup, he says to his advisors. They are stealing Ukraine from us. Then Putin makes his move. Russian soldiers, without flags, appear in Crimea, a peninsula in the Black Sea. Within weeks, Russia takes control. A quick vote is held. The result is clear. Crimea is now part of Russia. The West is shocked. But Putin is proud. He calls it the correction of a historic mistake. Sanctions follow. Europe and the United States punish Russia. Banks close accounts. Russian companies lose billions, but Putin does not retreat. Instead, he helps rebels in eastern Ukraine. Weapons and fighters cross the border secretly. A war begins in the Donbas region. Thousands die. Millions leave their homes. Yet Putin says Russia has nothing to do with it. Why risk so much? For Putin, Ukraine is more than land. It is about power and history. He believes the West broke its promises after the Cold War. He thinks NATO is moving too close to Russia's borders. Ukraine joining NATO would be his red line. While Russia fights quietly in Ukraine, Putin plays another game. He builds stronger ties with China. He sells gas to Asia. He prepares Russia's economy for long battles. By 2021, Ukraine's army is stronger, but still weaker than Russia's. Western countries give money and weapons, but they avoid direct war with Moscow. Putin watches all of this like a chess master. He studies every move. He waits for the perfect moment. Then, in February 2022, the world wakes up to shocking news. Russia launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Missiles hit Kyiv, Kharkiv, and many other cities. Tanks roll across the border. Putin says it is a special military operation. But everyone knows it is war. The West responds with heavy sanctions. Big companies leave Russia. European countries try to stop buying Russian gas. Billions of dollars in Russian assets are frozen. But Putin is ready. He uses China, India, and Turkey as new partners. He sells oil to Asia at cheaper prices. He pays soldiers more. He tells Russians, "The West wants to destroy us. We must fight for survival." The war drags on. Ukraine fights bravely. But cities are destroyed. Millions of refugees run to Europe. Still, Putin does not back down. He believes time is on his side. He thinks Western leaders are weak and divided. By 2025, something new begins to happen. Europe is tired. Its economies are slowing. Energy prices are high. People protest in the streets. Putin sees this weakness. He knows he can use his power, his oil, his gas, his metals, to strike a deal with someone unexpected. And that someone is Donald Trump. A storm is coming. A secret plan is forming. What will happen when two unpredictable leaders, Putin and Trump, finally face each other? The answer will change the world. Chapter 5. Sanctions and Survival. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the world reacted fast. Europe and the United States announced the biggest sanctions in modern history. Banks were cut off from the SWIFT system. Russian billionaires lost their yachts, villas, and businesses. Flights to Europe and America stopped. Many in the West believed this would destroy Russia's economy. They thought Putin would give up. But they were wrong. Putin had been preparing for years. He built a fortress Russia. Gold reserves were high. National debt was low. New trade routes with China, India, and Turkey were already open. When Western companies left, Russian companies took their place. Shops changed foreign names. Starbucks became Stars Coffee. McDonald's became Vkusno I Tochka. Tasty and that's it. Life changed, but it did not stop. Still, sanctions hurt. Western cars, electronics, and medicines became harder to find. Prices rose. But Putin used propaganda to blame the West. On TV, he said, "They want to destroy Russia. But we will fight. We will survive." Millions of Russians believed him. They felt surrounded by enemies. This fear made them support their leader even more. Meanwhile, oil and gas sales kept Russia alive. Europe tried to stop buying Russian energy, but in 2022, it still paid hundreds of billions of dollars for it. Even after that, Russia sold oil to Asia at cheaper prices. Tankers moved quietly through the seas. Companies in Turkey, UAE, and Africa helped hide Russian oil. Putin always found a way. Another secret weapon was metals. Russia produces huge amounts of nickel, palladium, and uranium. These are needed for electric cars, weapons, and even nuclear power. The United States, despite sanctions, still depended on Russian uranium. Europe still needed some Russian metals. Putin knew this. He used it as silent leverage. Inside Russia, life became more militarized. Factories worked day and night to make weapons. Young men were sent to fight in Ukraine. Families received money for every soldier. The government promised jobs, homes, and food for those who served. It was not luxury, but it was survival. By 2024, the ruble, Russia's currency, was stable again. Western economists were shocked. How can this be? They asked. The answer was simple. Russia had friends outside the West. China bought more oil and gas. India became one of Russia's biggest customers. African countries traded food and minerals for Russian weapons. Putin played his cards carefully. Every sanction became a chance to build new alliances. He told countries in Asia and Africa, "The West will betray you one day, but Russia is your partner." Slowly, Russia's isolation became partial, not total. But there was a problem. The war in Ukraine was expensive. Billions of dollars were spent every month. Russia needed new money, new markets, and new opportunities. At the same time, Europe was getting weaker. High energy prices created protests in France, Germany, and Italy. Factories closed. People were angry. And in 2025, a familiar name returned to power in the United States: Donald Trump. Trump had always been different from other American presidents. He said, Europe must pay more for defense. He didn't trust NATO allies. He liked making deals, not wars. Putin noticed this. For years, the two men had sent signals to each other, sometimes friendly, sometimes cold. Now, with Trump back, Putin saw a huge opportunity. What if the United States and Russia made a deal? What if they worked together, not as enemies, but as partners? Gas for money, metals for silence, influence for power. It sounded impossible. But history is full of impossible deals. And soon, the two men would test each other in a game where the winner could reshape the world. What would happen when Trump gave Putin an ultimatum? And how would Putin respond? Chapter 6. The Trump Ultimatum. Summer 2025. In Brussels, NATO leaders meet. The mood is tense. Trump stands at the podium, his voice loud and sharp. Europe must pay for its own defense, he says. If you don't pay, America will not protect you. Some leaders look down. Others whisper to each other. Germany, France, Italy, they are all nervous. Their economies are weak. Energy prices are high. Public anger is growing. Behind the scenes, Trump has another plan. He wants to deal directly with Russia. He believes sanctions no longer work. He thinks Putin can be used as a source of cheap energy and rare metals. Trump's advisors warn him. Putin cannot be trusted, they say. But Trump smiles. Everything is negotiable, he replies. On July 30th, Trump makes a dramatic move. He announces that Russia has only 12 days to end the war in Ukraine. If not, the United States will impose massive tariffs on Russian exports. The world is shocked. Markets fall. News channels show maps, countdown clocks, and scary headlines. Is this the road to war? Or the road to a secret deal? Putin listens quietly in the Kremlin. He reads Trump's words carefully. The message is clear. The threat is real. But behind it, there is an offer. Putin knows Trump's style. A public fight, followed by a private negotiation. Inside a golden room in the Kremlin, Putin meets his advisors. They discuss every detail. If Trump wants a deal, what will we give him? Gas, metals, access to the Arctic shipping route. And what will we take? Lifting sanctions, recognition of Russian influence in Ukraine, the Caucasus, and Central Asia, access to American technology. Putin's face stays calm. This is not weakness, he says. This is strategy. While the West panics, Putin makes a bold signal. Russia suspends uranium shipments to China for 3 weeks. At the same time, it increases exports to markets outside NATO. This is a message to Trump. Russia is ready to change direction, if the price is right. Russian media begins to talk about a new pragmatism with Washington. No one says the word deal, but the idea is in the air. Europe, meanwhile, is terrified. Without American protection and without Russian energy, it feels weak and helpless. Behind closed doors, American and Russian officials talk quietly. They explore secret options, 20 to 30 billion cubic meters of Russian gas sent indirectly to the U.S., 15 million tons of LNG, enough to power American factories cheaply, access to Russian metals like palladium and nickel, crucial for electric cars and weapons. For Russia, this could mean $12 to $15 billion a year in fresh income. For America, it means cheap resources without European drama. But this deal is not just about money. It is about power. Every cubic meter of gas, every ton of metal, is a piece of geopolitical influence. America wants 3 things. 1. Weaken the link between Moscow and Beijing. 2. Limit Russia's role in Ukraine and the Middle East. 3. Gain leverage over Europe. Russia wants 3 things too. 1. Recognition as a global energy power. 2. Partial removal of sanctions. 3. A quiet acceptance of its security interests in former Soviet regions. The world watches the countdown. 12 days. 11 days. 10. Is this a path to peace? Or a trap that will change the world forever? Behind every threat, behind every smile on TV, 2 men, Trump and Putin, are playing the most dangerous game of their lives. What will happen when they finally meet face to face? The answer is coming soon. Chapter 7. The Secret Deal. The world is watching the countdown. 10 days, 9 days, 8 days. Every news channel shows the clock. Is this a road to war or something else? Inside the Kremlin, Putin is calm. He knows Trump well. A public threat is often just a negotiation tactic. Trump is not like other U.S. presidents, Putin tells his advisors. He loves deals. He loves to win. Trump, too, is planning in secret. In a private meeting at the White House, he speaks to his closest team. Europe is weak. We don't need to protect them for free, he says. Russia has gas, metals, and power. We can use that. We can make America rich again. Some advisors protest. Mr. President, Putin is dangerous. You can't trust him. Trump laughs. You never trust. You just make a better deal. Behind closed doors, American and Russian negotiators meet quietly, in neutral places like Istanbul and Geneva. They talk numbers. They talk routes. They talk about what each side will give and what each side will get. For the United States, the deal looks like this. Gas. 20 to 30 billion cubic meters of Russian gas per year sent through complex routes. LNG, liquefied natural gas. Around 15 million tons, enough for U.S. factories and power plants. Metals, palladium, nickel, and enriched uranium. Key materials for weapons, cars, and electronics. For Russia, the rewards are huge. $12 to $15 billion a year in fresh income. Partial lifting of sanctions on banks and energy companies. Quiet acceptance of Russian influence in Ukraine, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. Putin plays his cards perfectly. He signals flexibility, but only on his own terms. He increases gas offers to Asian markets, showing Trump that Russia has other buyers. He freezes uranium exports to China for 3 weeks, reminding Washington that Russia can shift alliances anytime. Meanwhile, Europe feels betrayed. Leaders in Berlin and Paris hold emergency meetings. What if America and Russia strike a deal without us? One minister asks. No one answers. European economies are already weak. Factories close, protests grow, citizens blame high energy prices and endless support for Ukraine. Putin smiles quietly. A divided Europe is easier to control. Finally, after days of secret talks, an unwritten understanding is reached. There is no formal treaty, no big ceremony. It is simply a pragmatic arrangement. Gas for money, metals for silence, influence for power. The public sees only the surface. Trump announces, "We are working on a solution. A great deal, maybe the best ever." Putin remains silent, as always. Behind the scenes, trade flows slowly change. Russian gas begins to move through hidden routes. American companies quietly prepare to enter the Russian market again, selling technology, equipment, and medicine. The media in Europe explodes with anger. "America betrayed us," the headlines cry. But protests and complaints mean nothing. Washington and Moscow are already acting. This is not a friendship. It is not even trust. It is cold, hard pragmatism. Trump wants to win elections with cheap energy and stronger industry. Putin wants recognition and cash to keep his war machine alive. Both men understand the same rule. Power is for those who hold the resources. The countdown ends. But there is no war, no sanctions explosion, no new conflict. Instead, the world quietly shifts. A new map of power is being drawn. One pipeline, one contract, one secret handshake at a time. But the question remains, How long can this silent deal last? And when will the world finally see its true cost? The answer is in the next chapter. Chapter 8. Europe falls, America rises. The deal is never signed on paper. There is no handshake in front of cameras. But slowly, the world begins to feel its effects. American factories hum with new energy. Cheap gas powers machines day and night. Electric car companies get steady supplies of nickel and palladium. Defense industries buy enriched uranium for weapons and reactors. Trump takes credit. America is winning again, he says in rallies. Crowds cheer. Jobs return. Energy prices drop. But across the Atlantic, Europe is struggling. Gas is expensive. Factories in Germany close. French farmers protest. In Italy and Spain, people fill the streets, angry at rising costs. European leaders feel betrayed. For decades, they believed America was their strongest ally. Now, they see Washington cutting deals with Moscow, without asking them, without caring. Germany tries to find new gas sources. It buys from Norway, Qatar, and the United States, but the prices are higher. Industries lose money. Investors move their factories abroad, some even to America. Trump has turned our crisis into his success, a German minister admits bitterly. France, Italy, and Poland argue about Ukraine. Some want to keep sending weapons. Others say, enough. We need peace. We need cheap energy. Putin watches all of this with quiet satisfaction. A divided Europe is weak. A weak Europe cannot stop Russia from expanding its influence. In Brussels, NATO meetings become chaotic. Trump continues to demand more money for defense. America is not your free protector anymore, he says. Some European leaders whisper that NATO is dying. Without a united West, Russia gains room to move. It sells more oil to Asia. It signs trade deals with Middle Eastern countries. It slowly wins back the influence it lost after the Cold War. Inside Russia, Putin's popularity rises again. State TV says, the West has accepted Russia as a great power. Factories run at full speed to support the war. Soldiers' families receive more money. The economy is still not perfect, but it survives, and that is enough for Putin to claim victory. American media debates the deal. Some call it smart. Trump outplayed Europe and China at the same time. Others call it dangerous. America is feeding a dictator who invaded Ukraine. But Trump doesn't care. He sees votes, jobs, and power. He knows most Americans care about cheap fuel, not foreign wars. Meanwhile, Europe feels cornered. Without cheap energy, its industries lose to American and Asian competitors. Unemployment rises. Political parties promise radical solutions. Some want peace with Russia. Others want full confrontation. The European Union, once strong, now looks weak and divided. Putin has achieved what many thought impossible. He turned Western sanctions into a tool for negotiation. He turned America into a secret partner, and he left Europe behind, broken and angry. But history never stops. Deals have consequences. What happens when Trump's short-term gains create long-term risks? What happens when Russia, richer and stronger, wants more than just money? The new map of power is still being drawn. Pipelines connect Moscow and Washington more than ever before. But trust? Trust does not exist. Europe watches from the sidelines, its future uncertain. America enjoys its new strength. and Russia waits, patient as always. Because for Putin, this deal is not the end. It is just another move in a much bigger game. The final chapter will reveal who truly wins when superpowers trade resources for power, and how long before the world pays the price. Chapter 9. A New World Map. The world looks different now. The United States is strong again. Its factories are busy. Energy is cheap. Jobs are returning. Trump celebrates, calling it the greatest deal of the century. But this deal has changed more than just prices. It has shifted global power. Europe is weaker than ever. Germany's industries shrink. France faces endless protests. Italy and Spain struggle with debt and unemployment. Some European leaders secretly discuss making peace with Russia. Others want to fight harder. But without American support, NATO feels broken. Putin sees all of this. For him, it is the perfect result. A divided Europe means less resistance. A richer Russia means more influence. Russia uses its new money to expand. New weapons are built. Allies in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East receive more Russian support. Countries that once feared Moscow now sign deals with it. The Arctic shipping route, controlled by Russia, becomes a key global trade path. America also benefits from this route. Ships travel faster between Asia and North America, but every ship that passes gives Russia more leverage. China watches carefully. Beijing is not happy. The deal between Trump and Putin weakens China's influence. Russia sells less to China and more to the United States. For the first time in years, Moscow is not fully dependent on Beijing. This makes the global game even more complex. 3 superpowers, America, Russia, China, all test each other quietly. Inside Russia, propaganda is louder than ever. State TV calls Putin the man who defeated the West. The message is simple. The world now respects Russia again. Ordinary Russians feel proud, but behind the pride, life is still hard. Prices are high. Many young men are dead or injured from the war. Yet Putin knows something important. Power is not only about comfort, it is about fear and respect. In Washington, Trump prepares for re-election. He shows crowds the new jobs, the cheap gas, the strong dollar. America first, he says proudly. But some politicians warn, this deal is dangerous. Putin will not stop here. Trump shrugs. For now, America is winning. That's what matters. Meanwhile, in Europe, anger grows. Some countries talk about building their own armies, their own energy plans, even their own nuclear weapons. But unity is gone. The European Union feels weaker than at any time in its history. The new world map is being drawn silently. The United States has cheap energy and rare metals. Russia has money, power, and recognition as a global energy giant. Europe has lost its influence, trapped between Washington and Moscow. China is forced to rethink its strategy. But there is one big question left. How long can such a deal survive? Putin is patient. He has achieved part of his dream. Russia respected, feared, and rich again. Yet history shows that pragmatic deals do not last forever. Interests change. Leaders leave. New crises appear. What will happen when Russia asks for more than just money? What will Trump do if Putin's next move threatens America's allies, or America itself? The answer is uncertain. But one thing is clear. The game between great powers never ends. Today, Putin looks like a winner. Tomorrow, the board may change again. Because in global politics, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And in this dangerous new world, one cold, silent man in the Kremlin still holds more cards than anyone else. The story is not over. It is only the beginning of a new struggle for power.